Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the map Eschen, playing as the Vampire Coast against the forces of the Dawi. And this is a match that's probably one of, if not the worst, for the Vampire Coast. Personally, I think any faction that can bring massive amounts of shooting presents a serious challenge for the Vampire Coast. But Dwarves with their real tankiness and survivability and high leadership make this even worse. And cost-effective shooting as well. So, previously you guys have seen some of my ridiculous builds, like an Adeptus Titanicus build with a horde of Necrofex Glossi. I brought it in against Sudevil. He did beat it pretty handily. But I figured, you know what, a change of pace. Let's try something more legitimate. And so we've actually brought a Cylostra Deerfin build. So, going over the comp here, I wanted to have a good amount of summons. I wanted to go aggressive. I wanted to rush my opponent down. And I figured what better way to do this than Cylostra. So, Cylostra here, she's got quite a few abilities. Obviously, mounted on her Rotting Leviathan, she is very tanky. She does have a single spell. I only brought the Denizens of the Deep, looking to get my Rotting Promethean summons. She also does have the Bordalo for Lambellum, as well as the Arcane Conduit to get lots of Winds of Magic. Finally, of course, she does a Song of Enthrallment, which is an AoE debuff, which, you know, always nice. And Ghost of the Past, which does her summon a unit of Damned Knights Errant. So we've already got two abilities there to compromise my opponent's backline, as well as a very tanky large lord that my opponent's going to struggle to really shut down. Obviously, something like Slayers or Cannons could do her in pretty quickly, but we do have a whole bunch of tools to hopefully shut those down. Alongside her, we do have a Vampire Fleet Captain of Lore Vampires, who does have Invocation of the Heck to provide healing support, as well as Drowned Dead to get even more summons on the field. She also does have Taunt, as well as the Power Stone to get us more Winds of Magic. So all in all, a whole bunch of buffs, and honestly, an okay combat hero as well, so she'll be able to support the front line an okay amount. For our main line, it is simply a whole bunch of Zombie Pirate Deckhands. You've probably seen the same lineup in my Necrofex build, except this time they're here to support a whole bunch of Morngulls. So, Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs, nothing too fancy, but not terrible either. They'll trade okay into, say, miners with blasting charges. If they get on top of units like Quarrelers or Slayers or whatever, they'll do a good amount of damage, and they are fairly cheap at 300 gold. Behind them, we do have 4 units of Morngulls, one of which is the Regiment of Renown Night Terrors, who do also cause terror. All of these units, they've got crazy melee attack, and they do have a pretty monstrous bonus for infantry. I think they're like Croc scores. They've got plus 20, so 60 melee attack. These guys do have some chevrons in them, but 2, 2, and 1 because I had some points left over. But with bonus versus infantry, they're sitting at 60 melee attack against infantry, which means they're just going to dice through all these troops pretty efficiently. Up in the sky, we do have 4 units of bats looking to compromise the backline. So all in all, some good sort of, I think, backline harass, as well as some decent troops to just chew through the front line. Night Terrors, of course, have monstrous melee stats. We'll be getting debuffs from the Cylostra, and with all this chaff, we can hopefully protect the Morngulls. And of course, the Morngulls themselves are okay HP pool-wise, and they do have stocks. So they're not going to, and I think 30% missile resist to boot. So they're going to be fairly tanky against missile pressure, hopefully. For my opponent here, he did decide to go with a very boxy defensive build. His front line is composed of miners with blasting charges, as well as the Ekron miners, who simply have frenzy and more ammo. For his lord, he did bring Ungrim Iron Fist, who's fully kitted out. Not something you see every day. Ungrim, though, potentially an absolute beast. He can do a lot of damage. He does have Red Ruin. He's got Axe of Dargo. So if he can get on a Cylostra, he's going to dumpster her. But as long as we can keep him away, he's definitely not going to get much done against the rest of this comp. Perhaps some damage against like the Morngulls, or if he can get on the Vampire Fleet Captain, but he's going to struggle to stay on targets like that. Alongside him, a Runesmith, once again, fully kitted out, only missing his... Actually, yeah, I think he's only missing the Leadership Rune, which is pretty surprising. Hammer of Characterizes in there. He's got Rune of Negation, Rune of Wrath and Ruin, Rune of Oath and Steel, and the Forge Fire, which is actually buffing Ungrim here. And he himself, not a bad melee command. Certainly not on par with, say, a Vampire Fleet Captain, but he does have much better armor. He's definitely very tanky, and he's going to be tough to put down. Alongside that, Flame Cannons to clear away chaff. So you can see the theme here is really getting rid of chaff and trash troops. 3 units of Bugman's Rangers providing some non-AP fire support, but of course they do have charge defense against large, and they've got monstrous melee stats of their own. And on the flanks, we have Slayers for anti-large, and then a whole bunch of Longbows with great weapons, and some Dwarf Warriors with great weapons in the backline. So a very solid lineup, in my opinion. Personally, I don't think the Flame Cannon is necessary. I think against chaff, you'll be okay with just bring, say, Dwarf Warriors or Miners with Blasting Charge and units like that. But nonetheless, still, some pretty potent stuff. I do think this build could potentially suffer against a heavy artillery comp from Vampire Coast, but I didn't bring that, so should be okay here. Now, you can see my opponent here peppering down at my Fellbats as I do make a dash. Now, the Flame Cannon does have a respectable range of 230, so somewhere around here, it's going to be able to start hitting my infantry. And I really actually don't want it hitting my blobs. Now, certainly they're expendable, But if my opponent manages to dumpster each of my blobs before they make it into range, I'm suddenly going to be in deep trouble because these Slayers will be able to get surrounded on my Murngulls, get on top of Cylostra Deerfin, and then the summons will not be enough to compensate, in my opinion. So regardless, we are pushing in. Now we are going to try to get in on my opponent. Pushing in with Cylostra and, of course, the Murngulls, letting them get ahead because I actually don't mind if they soak up some blasting charges or flame cannon shots. The flame cannon is going to do very little. It really did like 4 damage there, which is pathetic. But it's really not going to be able to do very much against her. There it did like 90, so it could do something every now and then with like direct hits and some luck. But Bugman's Ranger's now joining in, but this is where that 150 armor really does come in. She's basically an Ragnarok Spider with a little less mobility and no strider. So she's going to be able to soak up this fire, waltz through it. She actually does retain some, not a lot, but some physical resist. You can see here she's got 10% physical resist, top 150 armor. She's going to be a very tough nut to crack. The bats in the meantime are going to dive down. You can see they're coming down on the flame cannon, and all of the rest of the bats are going to start diving in on the Bugman's Rangers, looking to saturate this back line as the Damn Knights Errant come into the back and are going to swamp the flame cannon immediately. Now it is important to keep in mind that the drunk Rangers here, the Bugman's Rangers, they've actually got immunity to psychology, so trying to use the Knights Errant on them, kind of a waste. These guys do have charge defense against large, they've got very high melee defense, they've got immunity to fear and terror, so we put them on the flame cannon. The Damn Knights Errant are going to try to remove this flame cannon from play, and that is their chief function. And if they can get that done, that is a win. In the meantime, Cylostra is roving around and destroying these poor miners, and the satchel charge, they're definitely very wasted on her. Definitely not what my opponent should have done. And in the meantime, in come the Night Terrors, and they're going to start dicing through these guys with contemptuous ease. And it's already see they're down like 1,000 HP in the space of seconds. And in the meantime, the zombies are sort of meandering forward, making their way there. Now, certainly my opponent is able to shut down most of the bats at this point. But the flame cannon's been terror routed, and now the summons are coming in. You can see the zombie pirates here helping cut off my opponent's slayers from reinforcing these miners and start pressuring these bugmans as the Murngulls dice through the miners. Over here, my opponent does hit the Night Terrors with Hammer of Characterized and Rune of Wrath and Ruin, helping the Acorn miners hold a little better, but really nowhere near enough, and really these guys are just so devastating. So even with Ungrim coming in, even with the Runesmith diving in to do some damage, they really don't give a damn, and they're going to start tearing through these troops. And here's Cylostra. She's still running amok. She's got 150 armor, so Slayers, normal Slayers are not going to cut the mustard here. The Flame Cannon crew at this point shattered. We do get a heal in, an invocation from the heck from our caster, and from our support caster. And you can see Cylostra here just roaming around, really dumpstering this backline, and the zombie pirates are finally getting in there. You can see they're slowly, surely making their way forward. Unfortunately, these Murngulls here overextending a bit, and probably not in the best spot. This is not really where you want them fighting at Slayers. These guys only have 40 armor, and even with hunger, that's not going to compensate for how much damage the Slayers are doing. But we do get some summons in, more zombie pirate deckhands hitting the field, and the push goes on. And over here, my opponent, Dwarf Warriors, stuck against zombie pirate deckhands, so terrible trade for him. And we just keep pushing, we just keep trucking along. More pirate deckhands, the Night Terrors in here, bogging down Ungrim and bogging down the Runesmith. Another summon coming in, Rotting Prometheans this time. We're going to be able to dive in onto the Bugman's Rangers and start shutting them down. They actually get a recharge in there, which means these guys don't get their charge defense. Obviously, Bugman's Rangers do regenerate, and they've got very good sustained melee stats, but still, getting them offline is very important. It's a huge win, and we do hit them with a taunt to reduce their stats further and make them easier targets from the Prometheans. In the meantime, in comes the Tides of Skjold, and you can see this constant pressure, just this constant wave of pirates swarming over my opponent's lines. Ungrim and the Runesmith are bogged down in a terrible position here, fighting against the Zombie Pirate Deckhand and Night Terrors. Now, obviously, Ungrim can trade well here. The Runesmith can hold out for an okay amount of time, but it means that these Bugman's Rangers, these Acorn Miners, they're swamped in the backline and compromised, and they're just getting swarmed on by the Vampire Fleet Captain, by the Murngulls, and all these troops. Power Stone going down, so more Winds of Magic. So basically, I've got a tide of Winds of Magic pouring in because I've got Cylostra, I've got all those buffs and debuffs coming in. Cylostra over here spazzing out a little bit, reconsidering, not entirely sure what she wants. Song of Enthrallment is hitting these guys though, and making them much more susceptible to damage, or well, more susceptible to trading badly, I guess is the correct phrase there. But unfortunately, the Pirate Deckhands here not really hurting these guys very much, and Cylostra, although she'll be doing some damage, is well, spazzing, and she can't tear out Longbeard, so that's a bit of a disadvantage. And probably something I should have noticed, and I should have probably shifted her away to deal with the Bugman's Rangers or other units like not the Slayers, but those Bugman's Rangers for sure. Meantime, though, the Murngulls are running shop over here on 44 kills, slaughtering the miners, and another summon of Rotting Prometheans does go down, which is going to start compromising these Bugman's Rangers. You can see these guys up to 34 kills, slugging it out just fine with Pirate Deckhands, but once the Prometheans roll in, things will shift quickly. Over here, the Murngulls and Fleet Captain overwhelming miners and just swamping this backline. finally, these Dwarf Warriors did win, and I think this actually shows, you know, the zombies can trade okay. These guys are down to 3,000 HP. The zombies, you know, they probably didn't pay for themselves quite, but do keep in mind, this is still a decent trade. This is a 500 gold unit, so, you know, they almost got their value back in a situation where they really shouldn't have, probably. But this, we're just bogging down all these troops. You can see Ungrim over here bogged down, fighting the Night Terrors. He's not able to cut the mustard here. Certainly he pops Axe of Dargo. He's popped Red Ruin, but that only makes him more vulnerable. And he's actually just taking the Pound Town here. You can see he's losing like hundreds of HP. They all 616, probably one of the pirates, but still, we are able to tear him down. And elsewhere, the Dwarf army is just dying. The Runesmith here, not able to cut the mustard. Tide of Skulls, still bogging these guys down. Hit by Hammer of Carrick Draz, probably wasted. Probably would have been better on the Morngulls and the Prometheans or so anything else, basically. But with the Red Ruin procced, Ungrim is going to fall apart rather quickly. Over here, the Vampire Fleet Captain is still running shop, hitting these Boogman's Rangers with another taunt. And at this point, my opponent's army is simply going to shatter to army loss. And you can see the full rout going on. The last two Slayers here holding strong, trying to buy time, I guess, or trying to win, but it's not going to happen at this point. Cylostra's in there. At this point, it doesn't really matter. She's going to be able to gut these guys just fine. Song of Enthrallment is down, so they have no melee attack to speak of, really. And they are just going to get Shrek'd at this point. And it's going to be GG for the Vost. So, good stuff. We still had several Morngulls left alive. Just oversaturating my opponent's backline with summons. Now, this is going to be a lot more difficult in the upcoming patch because zombie summons are getting more expensive. Rotting Prometheans, I do believe, have a longer cooldown, I want to say. It might be they might be more expensive as well, but they have a longer cooldown, I think, in the beta patch. But nonetheless, look at the results here. The damage pretty well spread out. But really, we were able to just oversaturate my opponent with zombies, get those bats in there, disrupt the backline, and we had so many summons. Cylostra summoning her. Got both of her Promethean summons, got her Knight summon. Now, the Knight's not great against Dwarves because they do magic damage, but still, able to compromise that cannon, get it offline, and open the way for the rest of our troops. And, yeah, all in all, pretty solid. Now, had my opponent gone with a super heavy, say, AP build, which maybe it would happen. I've never really, I don't feel that that's the way to go with Dwarves, but definitely cannons, I think, are a good choice in this matchup if you want to go more defensive with Dwarves. And in that situation, the only real good target for them here is Cylostra, because keep in mind, Morngulls are stalked until they hit the line, and once they hit the line, they're pretty small, so cannons can't really shoot in, or they're going to struggle to shoot in. So against cannons, we could play a little more safe, or rush Cylostra in there, get the summons going, and hopefully melt them down that way. If there was like a bunch of Thunderers, then we'd be in a bit of trouble, I think. Cylostra would probably get focused down pretty heavily, and she does cost quite a bit of gold, so not exactly what you want happening. But nonetheless, I do think that against most Dwarf builds, you're likely to see, which are usually you're gonna see a mix of some sort of anti-large. Either mass slayers like what we saw with Sioux Devil's build, or with cannons like what I'm generally fond of doing with Dwarves. Builds like that, you're going to see, against that, Cylostra's tanky enough. She's not going to go down in like a few shots, so that's good. And if your opponent just goes with masses of like light shooting, which is generally what you're going to see, supplementing that the anti-large options, well, they're not like... Killing zombie pirate deckhands isn't really that efficient. Morngulls have stalk, and then can hopefully munch through your front line quickly. And then stuff like Cylostra, she's tanky. She's not going to go down to a couple of Boogman's Rangers. And this game, like the whole game, my opponent was pounding Cylostra. A good chunk of the game, he was pounding Cylostra with Boogman's Rangers. He was trying to shoot her with miners. He was fighting her with longbows with great weapons, some slayers at one point, and she still got through with about half her HP, which is pretty nuts. But regardless, well played to my opponent. Definitely my critique here on this build would be that you want some I ditched the flame cannon. It's really unnecessary. I think it's overkill. I would try to get in probably a cannon or two somewhere. Although if you don't want to go for like a mass infantry build, like the style of what Sioux Devil runs, which is honestly also a really solid build. But if you don't want to do that sort of comp, and you want to go more campy like what my opponent was doing here, I would say just bring some cannons, and you're going to be in a better spot. Gives you some potential to deal with Cylostra. And don't blob up as much, because then you're more susceptible to summons. Regardless, well played to Billows here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, don't hesitate to post them, and I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.